The Vorax ships appeared suddenly in the sky above New Haven Colony. Dark and sleek, they looked like polished black stones reflecting the light of Proxima Centauri. Captain Lee stood at the observation window, his face grim as he watched the alien vessels position themselves above the settlement. "They're different from anything in our records," said Officer Kang, handing Lee the latest sensor readings. "Mass and energy signatures suggest advanced technology." The colony's warning sirens began to wail. Civilians hurried to designated shelter areas while defense personnel moved to their stations. Lee had drilled them well. Despite the fear, there was no panic. The first transmission came 3 hours after the ships arrived. The colony's linguists worked frantically to decode it while engineers prepared defenses. "We have partial translation," announced Dr. Moon, her voice tense. "They call themselves the Vorax. They're claiming hunting rights to this system." The main view screen flickered to life, showing the first clear image of their visitors. The Vorax stood nearly 3 meters tall with muscular bodies covered in scales that resembled natural armor. Their heads featured prominent crests and rows of sharp teeth visible even when their mouths were closed. Their eyes, vertical slits like a reptile's, conveyed cold intelligence. "Soft prey," the translated voice rumbled through the speakers. "Your world is claimed for the hunt. Surrender and your deaths will be swift. Resist and you will suffer." Captain Lee exchanged looks with his senior staff. Earth had prepared them for first contact, but not for this. Not for being treated as prey. "Send our standard greeting package," Lee ordered. "Explain that we seek peaceful cooperation." The Vorax response came quickly. "Peace is for the weak. The strong hunt, the weak are hunted. This is the natural order." Within an hour, landing craft descended. The colony's sensors tracked 300 Vorax warriors deploying in precise formations around the settlement perimeter. Their movements were coordinated, efficient. They operated in small units that communicated with short, guttural sounds. "They're moving like wolves," observed Security Chief Du. "Flanking positions, cutting off escape routes." Lee activated the colony-wide communication system. "All personnel implement Defense Protocol Theta. This is not a drill." The Vorax attacked at dusk. They came in waves, testing the human defenses. Their natural armor deflected standard projectile fire, and they moved with surprising speed for their size. The first defensive line nearly broke under their assault. But humans had one advantage the Vorax hadn't anticipated: preparation for the worst. New Haven's defenses included experimental sonic weapons, designed originally to deter dangerous local wildlife. When activated, the devices emitted frequencies that proved agonizing to Vorax hearing. "They're retreating from sectors 3 and 4, reported Officer Kang, surprise evident in his voice. The Vorax regrouped and attacked again, this time avoiding the sonic emitters. They breached the outer perimeter at several points. Close quarters. Combat revealed their terrible strength. A single Vorax warrior could overpower 3 armored soldiers. Dr. Moon analyzed combat footage from her bunker laboratory. "Look at their behavior," she told Captain Lee over the comm. "They're not just fighting, they're hunting, they're taking trophies from the dead." As dawn approached, the colony's situation looked grim. 37 defenders had been killed, and the Vorax were preparing another assault. But then something unexpected happened. A group of miners led by Foreman Yoon detonated explosives in the nearby hills, causing a landslide that buried a Vorax flanking unit. Engineers under Dr. Jin's direction modified agricultural equipment into makeshift flamethrowers, exploiting what seemed to be a Vorax sensitivity to heat. The Vorax had never encountered resistance like this from prey species. They had expected terror and disorganization. Instead, they found humans fighting with coordination and adaptability that mirrored their own hunting tactics. As morning light spread across the battlefield, the Vorax commander, distinctive with crimson scales and elaborate armor, signaled retreat. The alien forces withdrew to their ships, leaving 17 of their dead behind. Captain Lee ordered teams to collect samples and data from the fallen Vorax while maintaining full alert status. "They'll be back," he told his exhausted staff, "and next time they'll be better prepared." "So will we," said Dr. Moon, already studying a Vorax tissue sample. "They thought we were easy prey, but they've never hunted humans before." In orbit, the Vorax commander Drekar stared at the human settlement with newfound respect. These creatures were small and soft, lacking natural weapons or armor, yet they fought with unexpected skill and unity. For the first time in his long hunting career, Drekar questioned whether his prey might be more dangerous than expected. 3 months after the first attack, the Vorax returned in greater numbers. Their ships appeared simultaneously above 3 human colonies: New Haven, Epsilon Base, and Horizon Settlement. This time there were no warnings, no demands, just immediate assault. At New Haven, Captain Lee had used the intervening time wisely. The colony's defenses had been reinforced with insights gained from studying the fallen Vorax. Every citizen, even children, had been trained in basic emergency protocols. "Multiple landing craft detected," Officer Kang announced, his voice steady, despite the tension. "Estimation of 800 warriors, nearly 3 times their previous force." Lee nodded grimly. "They've learned. They won't underestimate us again." The Vorax attacked with new tactics. They deployed sonic scramblers that neutralized the colony's sound-based weapons. Their warriors now wore heat-resistant armor, countering the flamethrowers that had proven effective during the first encounter. "They're adapting faster than we anticipated," Dr. Moon said as she studied the tactical displays. Her laboratory had worked day and night analyzing Vorax biology, looking for weaknesses. The situation at Epsilon Base was equally dire. Commander Min had only 200 soldiers against nearly 1,000 Vorax warriors. The aliens expected an easy victory, but Min had prepared a surprise. "Let them breach the main compound," she ordered her subordinates. "Draw them into the central plaza." When 300 Vorax stormed into the plaza, Min activated the hidden emitters. The air filled with a fine mist, a synthetic compound developed based on Dr. Moon's research. The mist clung to Vorax scales, penetrating the tiny gaps in their natural armor. Within minutes, the affected warriors began to lose coordination as the compound interfered with their nervous systems. At Horizon Settlement, the civilians had evacuated into the vast underground mining tunnels beneath the colony. When the Vorax found the settlement seemingly abandoned, they followed human tracks into the tunnels. Chief Miner Yoon waited until the hunting parties were deep in the maze-like passages. Then he sent the signal. Throughout the tunnel system, small teams of humans triggered localized cave-ins, not to crush the Vorax, but to separate them into smaller groups. "Divide and isolate," Yoon told his teams. "Never engage more than 2 at once." In the darkness of the tunnels, the Vorax's superior strength meant less. Humans, with their better low-light vision equipment and familiarity with the terrain, struck quickly and vanished. They used the confusing acoustics of the caverns to disorient the aliens' sensitive hearing. Back on the Vorax command ship, High Hunter Drekar received the battle reports with growing rage. 3 separate attacks, each meeting unexpected resistance. These humans should have been overwhelmed by superior force, yet they fought with desperate creativity. "Show me the casualty figures," he demanded. His second-in-command, Sub-Hunter Vex, hesitated before displaying the numbers. The Vorax had lost over 200 warriors while killing only 58 humans. "Impossible," Drekar hissed. "They are smaller, weaker, with no natural weapons." "They use the environment against us," Vex said carefully. "They set traps. They fight in ways no prey has fought before." At New Haven, the tide began to turn when Dr. Moon deployed her newest weapon: targeted electromagnetic pulses that disrupted the Vorax neural implants used for battlefield coordination. Suddenly, the precise hunting formations broke down into confused individual actions. Captain Lee seized the opportunity. "All units implement scatter protocol," he ordered. Small human squads engaged in hit-and-run attacks, never staying in one place long enough to be flanked or surrounded. By the second day of fighting, the Vorax began to retreat from all 3 colonies. Their losses were unsustainable, their tactics ineffective against opponents who refused to behave like proper prey. On the Vorax homeworld, The Council of Alpha Hunters met in emergency session. Such a gathering had not been necessary in 12 generations. These humans are unlike any species we have hunted, one elder stated, displaying footage of human soldiers working together to bring down a Vorax warrior 3 times their size. They lack strength but compensate with tools and cooperation, another observed. They communicate constantly, sharing information across vast distances. The most ancient member of the council spoke last, his voice rasping with age. In all our history, we have never had to change our ways. We have always been the apex hunters, but these humans... He paused, searching for the right concept. They hunt the hunters. The council reached a unanimous decision. The human threat required their full attention. This would no longer be a simple hunting expedition. It would be war. At Earth's Defense Command, General Park reviewed the reports from all 3 colonies. Despite heavy damage and casualties, humanity had survived. Its first major test against the Vorax. They'll come back stronger, she told her staff. But now we know they can bleed. Hunter analyst Rock sat alone in his study chamber aboard the Vorax command vessel. Surrounding him were screens displaying human behavior patterns, biological, samples, and battle recordings. For 60 cycles he had eaten little and slept less, consumed by the puzzle these creatures presented. A soft chime announced a visitor. Sub-Commander Kill entered, his scales dulled from recent battle wounds. "The High Hunter requests your findings," Kill said, eyeing the chaotic arrangement of data displays with suspicion. The council grows impatient. Rock gestured to the central screen showing humans fighting together. "Look at this combat sequence. 3 small humans coordinating to take down one of our elite warriors." Kill watched the footage with narrowed eyes. "They swarm like insects." "Not insects," Rock corrected. "Insects act on instinct alone. These humans communicate complex strategies instantly. They sacrifice individual advantage for group success." He switched to another display showing human anatomy. "Their bodies are weak. No claws, no significant teeth, thin skin, minimal muscle mass compared to ours. By all biological measures, they should be easy prey." "Yet they kill our warriors," Kill said, touching a fresh scar on his arm, "because they evolved differently than any species we've encountered." Rock pulled up a new image, a primitive human with a simple spear, pursuing a larger animal across an open plain. They were never the strongest predators on their world. They became hunters through persistence and tool use. He showed more images. Humans tracking prey for days, humans making weapons, humans working in groups to trap animals larger than themselves. "Most predators rely on ambush or short bursts of speed," Rock explained. "Humans evolved as persistence hunters. They pursue prey until it collapses from exhaustion." Kill's crest flattened against his skull, a sign of unease. "You suggest they now hunt us with the same patience?" "Exactly. And there's something else." Rock displayed footage of human military operations. "Notice how they form hunting groups with non-relatives. Vorax hunt only with bloodkin. Our packs rarely exceed 20 members. Humans coordinate among millions of unrelated individuals." The screen showed a human scientific team studying a dead Vorax warrior. "They learn quickly. Each encounter they gather data. They adapt their weapons to our weaknesses." "What weaknesses?" Kill demanded. "We are superior in every way." Rock switched to a biological scan of a Vorax brain. "Our neural structure is adapted for perfect hunting instincts. Instincts that have served us for millennia without need for change. But instinct is fixed. Humans have smaller brains but greater neuroplasticity. They reinvent themselves constantly." He showed a final recording, a human child playing with a puzzle, trying different approaches until succeeding. Even their young practice problem solving. When a strategy fails, they try something new. When we fail, we simply try the same approach, with greater force. Kill's discomfort was now visible. "The Council won't welcome these observations." "The Council must hear them," Rock insisted. "The humans have already developed targeted weapons against our sensory organs. They've created chemicals that penetrate the gaps in our scales. They study us as we study them, but they do it faster. Later, that day, Rock presented his findings to the Council of Alpha Hunters. The chamber was dark, lit only by the bioluminescent patterns on the ancient leader's scales. His presentation was met with hostile silence. "You claim these soft creatures are a match for Vorax?" one elder finally asked, voice dripping with skepticism. "I claim they are dangerous in ways we haven't recognized," Rock answered. "They don't fight like prey or predator. They fight like something new." Another council member rose. "The solution is simple. More warriors, more ships." "With respect," Rock countered, "sending more hunters will only give them more opportunities to study our tactics. We must change our approach." The head of council, ancient and massive, leaned forward. "In 10,000 years we have never changed our ways. We are apex hunters. It is not we who adapt, it is the galaxy that submits." As Rock left the chamber, he knew his warnings would be ignored. The Vorax would continue as they always had, relying on strength, instinct, and overwhelming force. But as he returned to his study and reviewed the latest human transmissions intercepted by Vorax intelligence, a new emotion took root in his mind: fear. He watched humans sharing battle information across light years, developing new weapons specifically designed to target Vorax physiology, training together in simulated environments based on previous encounters. For the first time in recorded history, a Vorax contemplated a disturbing possibility. Perhaps in the great hunt of the galaxy, they had finally encountered a species that could outthink the ultimate predator. What terrified Rock most wasn't the humans' weapons or numbers. It was their adaptability, their cooperation, and their relentless determination. The Vorax hunted by instinct, but humans hunted with imagination. And imagination, Rock was beginning to understand, might be the deadlier weapon. The Antares system glowed orange-red on the tactical displays of both fleets. Admiral Gill stood on the bridge of the Earth vessel Dauntless, watching as the largest Vorax battle group ever assembled moved into position. 300 Vorax warships formed a crescent around the human military outpost. Their black hulls absorbed the light of the Antares star, making them look like holes cut in space. "They've committed almost half their total fleet," reported Lieutenant June, studying the sensor readings. "Confidence or desperation?" "Both," Admiral Gill replied. He'd spent months preparing for this moment. Every ship captain, every soldier, every engineer in the human fleet knew their role perfectly. The plan was complex, but built on a simple insight. The Vorax wouldn't expect prey to set a trap for predators. The Admiral opened a channel to all human vessels. "Remember your training. They think in terms of the hunt. We think in terms of victory. Begin Operation Reversal." The Vorax attack began predictably. Their larger ships held position while smaller, faster hunter craft moved forward in precise formations. High Hunter Drekar commanded from the center vessel, confident in his overwhelming force. "The humans have only 67 ships," his tactical officer reported. "They cannot hope to withstand our assault." Drekar's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. "Begin the encirclement. Drive them toward the gas giant. No escapes this time." The human fleet appeared to respond exactly as expected, breaking formation and scattering in apparent panic. The Vorax ships pursued eagerly, their hunters' instincts triggered by the sight of fleeing prey. What they didn't realize was that the humans were following a carefully choreographed pattern, drawing the Vorax ships into specific positions. As the pursuit entered its second hour, Admiral Gill gave the signal: "Activate quantum mines." Throughout the battlefield, hundreds of previously invisible mines suddenly appeared, perfectly positioned between the pursuing Vorax vessels. Detonations rippled across space, creating precise gaps in the Vorax formation. "Now," ordered Gill, "strike teams, move in." From hiding places within the system's asteroid belt and the atmosphere of the gas giant emerged 200 small attack craft. Each carried only 3 crew members and a payload of specialized weapons. They moved with astonishing speed through the gaps created by the mines, targeting specific weaknesses in Vorax ship design that had been identified through months of intelligence gathering. On the Vorax command ship, alarms blared as systems began failing. "What is happening?" Drekar demanded. "The humans. They're targeting our neural control nodes," an officer reported, in shock. "They know exactly where to strike." The human strike craft deployed their second weapon, microscopic drones that attached to Vorax hull plating, and began drilling through at precise points. Once inside, they released engineered parasites specifically designed to attack the organic components of Vorax technology. Within minutes, ship after ship lost power or control as the parasites spread through their systems. The carefully organized Vorax battle formation began to disintegrate into chaos. "Reform the line," Drekar ordered. "All ships return to primary formation." But his commands went unheard. The human attack had specifically targeted Vorax communication systems. Each ship was now isolated, fighting alone, something the pack-oriented Vorax had never trained for. Meanwhile, the main human fleet moved into attack position. Their ships were smaller than Vorax vessels, but designed with one purpose: to exploit the weaknesses that hunter-analyst Rock had tried to warn his leaders about. "They're broadcasting on Vorax frequencies," reported Lieutenant Jun. "The sound patterns designed by Dr. Moon. They're disrupting their coordination." Admiral Gill nodded. "Begin Phase 3. The larger human warships now engaged, firing weapons that caused minimal physical damage but maximum psychological impact. They projected holograms that confused Vorax visual sensors, broadcast sounds that disoriented their neural systems, and deployed swarms of decoys that scattered their fire. 6 hours after the battle began, 80% of the Vorax fleet was destroyed or disabled. The remainder fled in disarray, abandoning their disciplined formations. Among the destroyed ships was Drekar's command vessel. The High Hunter had refused to retreat, fighting until his ship was completely surrounded. In his final moments, as human boarding parties breached his command center, Drekar finally understood the truth that Rock had tried to explain. These humans weren't just prey that had learned to fight back. They were something new, predators who hunted with their minds rather than instinct. News of the defeat spread quickly across the galaxy. Species that had been subjugated by the Vorax for generations suddenly saw hope. On 17 worlds, rebellions erupted simultaneously as former victims realized the so-called apex predators could be defeated. Admiral Gill stood at the viewport, watching as his team secured captured Vorax vessels. This victory had cost them dearly. 11 human ships lost thousands of lives, but it had proven something vital. Humanity would not be hunted. "Send word to Earth," he told Lieutenant Jun. "Operation Reversal successful. The hunt has been reversed." The sanctuary moon of Kavor was the final refuge of the once mighty Vorax Empire. Hidden deep in a nebula, protected by natural radiation barriers, it had remained untouched during the systematic dismantling of Vorax power across the galaxy. Here, the last 7,000 Vorax, including the Council of Alpha Hunters, had gathered their remaining resources and most sacred artifacts. Colonel Wei's fleet arrived at the edge of the nebula after a 3-month pursuit. 50 human ships against the last desperate remnants of a species that had once ruled a third of the known galaxy. "Radiation levels are within acceptable parameters," reported Navigator Bo. "The nebula won't protect them as they hoped." Wei nodded, studying the tactical display. "They chose this place for symbolic reasons, not strategic ones. This is where their species first evolved from simple hunters to spacefaring predators." After the decisive Battle of Antares, humanity had moved methodically through Vorax territory. Each stronghold fell faster than the last as human forces applied their growing knowledge of Vorax psychology and biology. The aliens couldn't adapt quickly enough to the constantly changing human tactics. "Begin the approach," Wei ordered. "All ships maintain dispersed formation. They'll try to ambush us if they can." The human fleet entered the nebula carefully, sensors sweeping for hidden dangers. They found none. The Vorax had exhausted their military resources in previous battles. On the third day, they reached the moon itself, a craggy reddish sphere with a thin, artificial atmosphere. Scanners detected a single large structure built into the largest crater, the ancestral hall of the Alpha Hunters. "They're broadcasting," said Communications Officer Sung. "Audio only." A deep, gravelly voice filled the bridge. "Humans, you have hunted us to our birthplace. We acknowledge your skill as predators. We offer tribute in exchange for our lives." Wei exchanged glances with her senior officers. This was unexpected. The Vorax had never before attempted negotiation. "Prepare. Landing teams," she ordered. "Full combat gear and biological protection. I want to hear their offer in person." 2 hours later, Colonel Wei led a contingent of 50 soldiers into the Great Hall of the Vorax. The chamber was vast, its walls covered in ancient carvings depicting hunts across countless worlds. The air was thick with unfamiliar scents, ritual incense masking the fear pheromones the Vorax couldn't control. 7 ancient Vorax sat on stone thrones at the far end. Their scales had faded with age, but their eyes remained bright with predatory intelligence. Before them lay piles of rare minerals, technology, and artifacts, offerings for the new apex species. "We submit to your dominance," said the central elder, its voice echoing in the chamber. "Take our tribute. Allow us to live as your subjects as others once lived under our rule." Wei stepped forward, her exosuit whirring softly. "You misunderstand our purpose. We never sought to replace you as galactic predators." The Vorax elders exchanged confused glances. In their worldview, the strong dominated the weak. It was the natural order they had always known. "If not dominance, then what?" another elder asked. "Security," Wei answered simply. "You threatened our existence," we responded. She gestured to her science officer, who projected images of a small, lush planet. "This is Sanctuary 3, a world we've prepared. Your species will continue there under observation, not as rulers, not as hunters of sentient beings, but as a preserved species." The eldest Vorax rose unsteadily to its feet, towering over the humans despite its age. "You would keep us as specimens like animals in a zoo?" "We would prevent your extinction," Wei corrected. "The alternative was proposed by many in our government, complete eradication of your species. This compromise allows your culture and biology to survive." The reality of their situation slowly dawned on the council. They were not being offered terms of surrender between equals. They were being informed of their fate by a species that had completely outmaneuvered them. "We are apex predators," the eldest said, mandibles clicking in agitation. "We cannot live as prey." "You were apex predators," Wei said quietly. "Now you are an endangered species. Evolution continues. Adapt or perish. Isn't that the law of nature you so revere?" In the days that followed, the remaining Vorax were transported to their new home. Sanctuary 3 was designed to meet their biological needs while keeping them isolated from the wider galaxy. Scientific teams would study them, ensuring they never again developed the technology to threaten other species. Throughout settled space, news of the Vorax containment spread quickly. Species that had lived in terror of the hunters for millennia celebrated their freedom. Others watched humanity with newfound wariness. On her return journey to Earth, Colonel Wei recorded her final report. "The Vorax threatened us because they couldn't conceive of prey that could fight back. They hunted across the galaxy because they knew nothing else. Their extinction would have been simpler, perhaps even justified. But in preserving them, we prove we are different. They hunted by instinct. We choose our path." In the night sky of Sanctuary 3, the last free Vorax gazed up at the stars that had once been their hunting grounds, now forever beyond their reach. The galaxy's most feared predators had become a cautionary tale, a reminder that even apex predators can be surpassed.